How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, February 28th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Luka Doncic. The elite Slovenian point guard for the Dallas Mavericks turns 23 today, and my intention with this episode is, of course, to put a little focus on and zoom in on how Luka Doncic has been affecting his team game in, game out, season in, season out on a micro level year by year. And of course, I'm going to zoom out and examine Luka Doncic's overall effect on the game of basketball, as we are still in the era of basketball history where international superstars are still very novel and are still a part of the reason why the NBA is starting to become incredibly global. And I do think that Luka Doncic is a very big part of what is launching the NBA from being, especially a mainly American-dominated sport, to being a truly global international sport. And I think that international stars like Luka Doncic are going to be very more common after you've seen players like Luka Doncic came. I think he is a trailblazer in his own right. He's doing what he's doing, and the fact that he's so young and he's already done so much, I am not the only person that has a lot of good things to say about what Luka Doncic can do for the game. He stands at about 6'7", 230 pounds. Not the most athletic guy on the court. He's not the longest, widest, tallest. He's not the fastest, twitchiest dude on the court. But the thing with Luka Doncic is that he has confidence and he has a lot of experience. He was playing professional ball in Europe when a lot of the players that he was playing against, when every single one that was playing in America was playing against high school competition. So he had that competition edge early, which of course plays into his confidence. Not to mention that he has an incredible bag of tricks, incredible handles. He has a good sense of where his feet are, which I think is a very underrated trait, especially for a player whose offense runs through him. He can shoot from anywhere, and I do think that his fearlessness is a big part of the reason that he is where he is. The big reason that he's a superstar instead of an all-star with all of the skills that he has. Luka Doncic most definitely has what it takes to potentially be the face of the league when it's his day, among other players within his draft class. So, just to get into it, he's originally from Ljubljana, which is the capital of Slovenia in Eastern Europe. He would go on to eventually find himself playing with the Real Madrid basketball organization, with the basketball club, in 2015 when he was just maybe 16 years old. He would go on to make his debut for Slovenia at 17 years old when he was in just 2016. Not to mention that he was doing all of this while playing against grown men in their 20s and 30s. While being a teenager in Europe, he would go on to win next generation tournaments. He would go on to win a bunch of because the basketball schedule is set up like soccer in Europe, where it's like you have the season itself and you have many different tournaments outside of it. He would go on to be named the best young player in Spain twice. He would go on to be named a champion in the Liga ACB 3 times with Real Madrid, and he was even the MVP in his final year that he was there. Right before he was taken as the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. He was the Liga ACB champion, the 2018 Liga ACB MVP, made the All-Liga ACB first team for the lone time in his career. He was the best young player for the 2nd year in a row. And not to mention that he would go on to make the EuroLeague Final Four. He was the EuroLeague MVP as well. And he was also the EuroLeague champion as he led Real Madrid against all European competition instead of just Spain. So that is the reputation that preceded him making it to the NBA, which is, of course, one of many alternate paths to the NBA, a lot tougher than going to college. And I would say pretty on par with coming to the NBA out of high school. But of course, going into the NBA, he was already a proven professional champion. He would be taken with the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft by the Atlanta Hawks. And of course, he would be part of the all-time famous trade where he was traded with the traded to the Dallas Mavericks to Trae Young and the draft pick that eventually ended up being Cam Reddish. And in this trade that many people saw would benefit both teams, Luka Doncic and Trae Young are still the only two players that were drafted in 2018 that have been named to an All-Star game. And not to mention that they've started All-Star games. So, of course, these are two players that will be inextricably linked for the rest of their NBA careers. And it's not even their fault, honestly, but I guess them playing that well is partly their responsibility. So once he would start playing with the Dallas Mavericks, which is where he played right now, his debut season would be his age 19 season in 2018-19. He would start all 72 of the games he played in a season where the Mavericks would finish with a 33-49 record. They would win 9 more games than the previous season, despite finishing with the second worst record in all of the Western Conference. Despite not making the playoffs, Luka Doncic would go down as the Rookie of the Year, edging out Trae Young. In the 72 games he played, he averaged at least 32 minutes a game, which is a lot for a 19-year-old rookie. He would average 21.2 points per game in his debut season. And out of those 20, he was averaging 21 points per game as a rookie while shooting 42 or 43% from the field, 33% from three, and he shot 71% from the foul line. Alongside his 21 points per game, he averaged about 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and just over a steal per game, which is tough for most for most top tier all-stars doing it now. Like, that's an all-star stat line, at least for this all-star game this year. And at the conclusion of the year, like I said, the Mavericks would not make the playoffs, but Luka Doncic would most definitely leave an impact on the game that many people would see. And in addition to being named the Rookie of the Year in 2019, he would go on to represent Slovenia in the Rising Stars game, and he would go on to, like I said, be one of a very few faces of a rising group of international superstars within the NBA. He would go on to finish with 8 triple-doubles in his rookie season. He would go on to be the 5th player to average at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in his rookie year. He was the second European player to win the Rookie of the Year in the NBA after Pau Gasol won the award. He is the 6th player to win the award who was not born in the United States. So, following that first year where the Dallas Mavericks wouldn't win, Luka Doncic would return for a second full season in 2019-2020, which was a season that was shortened and delayed due to COVID, which would see its end be played in Orlando. In that crazy season itself, Luka Doncic would start all 61 of the games he played in a season where the Dallas Mavericks would go on to finish with a 43-32 record. They would win 10 more games than the previous season as they finished with the 7th best record in the West. They would go on to clinch the playoffs for the very first time of him being there, ending a 3-year drought, and they hadn't made the playoffs before he got there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have drafted him. In the 61 games that he played, he would go on to average just 1 more minute a game. He would see his 21.2 points per game jump up to 28.8. His second year in the NBA saw him average 28.8 points per game, which is the highest points per game he's averaged in a season this year, all while shooting 46% from the field, which is 3.5% better than what he did his rookie year. He shot 31.5% from three on 9 3 attempts per game, 2 more attempts per game than the previous season, but it was still about 10% less. He would shoot 76% from the foul line, which is 5% better than what he did the year before. Alongside his nearly 29 points per game while just being 21 years old, he would average 9.4 assists, which is also his career high in assists to date, and he would average 8.8 assists, which is the second most assists that he's ever put up in a season. This is the first time he would average 28, 9, and 8 in his career. The only time he's done so to date. And this would be the second straight season he'd average at least 20 points, at least 6 rebounds, and at least 8 rebounds, and at least 6 assists on the year. He would do all this while averaging a steal for the Dallas Mavericks. In just his second year in the league, Luka Doncic would not only be named an All-Star for the very first time, he would be named to the All-NBA first team for the very first time in his NBA career. And it's not very often you see a player be voted as one of the top 5 players in the NBA in just his second year in the league. But of course, Luka Doncic is on his own very individual path. Once the Mavericks made the playoffs, they would end up losing in the very first round of the Disney playoff bubble to the LA Clippers. They ended up losing in 6, as the Los Angeles Lakers would eventually be the team to win the title this year. This would transition into Luka Doncic's second season, being an all-star in his third full season with the Dallas Mavericks. In his last full season with the team, he would start all 66 of the games he played in his age 21 season in 2020-2021. He would do all this in a season where the Mavericks would finish with a 42-30 record. They would finish with one less win than the prior season, as they would finish with the 5th best record in the West, just slightly better than what they had done the year before, especially win percentage-wise. Within that season, Luka Doncic would go on to average 34.3 minutes a game. He would see his minutes per game shoot up by almost a full minute compared to the previous year. He would average 27.7 points per game, which would be the 3rd year in a row. In his first 3 seasons, he'd average at least 20 points per game. In his second year in a row, he'd average at least 27. He would do all this while shooting 48% from the field, which is the highest he's ever shot from the field in a season in his career. He shot 35% from 3, making it the 3rd year in a row he shot at least 30% from 3, and the first time and the only time in his career he shot at least 35% from 3. He shot exactly on that line. He did all this while attempting at least 8 3-pointers a game, which is very impressive. He would go on to make 73% of his free throws. He would be on par with his previous 2 seasons. Alongside his 27.7 points, he averaged 8 rebounds, which was the second season in a row he's averaged at least 8 rebounds. The third in his first 3, he's averaged at least 7. As a guard, he will go on to average 8.6 assists, making it the second year in a row he's averaged at least 8 assists. And he will go on to average at least a steal for the 3rd year in a row. And once these season came to an end, the Dallas Mavericks would go on to lose to the LA Clippers in the first round again. But all this came after Luka Doncic was named an All-Star for the second time in his 3rd year in the league, and he would go on to be named to the All-NBA first team for the second straight time. That is the most recent All-NBA first team that has been named. So he is he's a reigning first team member. And of course, it's very possible that he could end up on that first team this year. But of course, following yet another season in which the Dallas Mavericks would go on to miss the playoffs, this would transition us into the season that we're currently in. We are in Luka Doncic's 4th season in the NBA, and in his age 22 season in 2021-22, he has started all 45 of the games he's played for a Dallas Mavericks team that is currently tied with the Denver Nuggets for the 5th best record in the West. They've won 7 of their last 10 games, as they sit 13 full games behind the first place Phoenix Suns in total at the moment, but it looks as though they're comfortably in position for a playoff spot. This season, Luka Doncic is averaging 35 minutes a game, which is a minute more than he's ever averaged in a season, more than he's averaged last season. He's averaging 27.4 points per game this season. He's on pace to average at least 27 for the 3rd year in a row. He's doing all this while shooting 44% from the field, which is about on par with what he was doing. A little less than what he was doing the last 2 years, but he was still there. He's shooting 33% from 3, which would be his 2nd best 3-point shooting season of his 4-year career so far. And he's shooting about 74% from the foul line, which is about even with what he's been doing with his entire career leading up till now. Alongside his 27.5 points per game, he's averaging 9 rebounds and 9 assists. This is the first time he's ever averaging 27, 9, and 9. However, this is the 3rd season in a row he's averaging at least 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists, which is incredible when you consider how tough of a feat that is. He's also averaging a steal per game. He's averaged at least a steal all 4 seasons he's been in the league, and he's averaging half a block, which tied with last season is about his career high at the moment. And after this All-Star game had already been played, yes, Luka Doncic has been named an All-Star for the 3rd time in his first 4 seasons. However, the season is still in session, so they don't have end-of-season awards. But that is about where we stand with Luka Doncic at this very point, as he is still trying his best to help the Dallas Mavericks making it into the playoffs with, at this moment, from my perspective, virtually no help in terms of players that are able to produce at his level. But regardless, he's still incredibly young, and he still has a lot of potential. He has a lot of basketball ahead of him, at least a decade from what I can see. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for, of course, listening to this piece. I want to thank the Pro Basketball Reference website, the NBA as well, for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed. I want to thank everyone once again for listening. If you ever get a chance to watch Luka Doncic, he wears number 77 for the Dallas Mavericks. And of course, with that said, once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow for the first day of March in 2022. And of course, once hopefully by the time we get to next year, Luka Doncic will have a whole nother year of basketball under his belt, knock on wood. And with that said, I want to thank everyone once again. I do hope all is well, and I do have a lot of fun talking about these young players because they do have a lot more ahead of them, and I have fun just capturing it year by year. Thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode of The Elite right after this, as I actually have 2 more individual profiles today. Thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode after this. Peace out.